I wasn't supposed to be here. Not really. Not in her apartment. With the late afternoon sun slanting through the blinds, dust motes hanging in the air like tiny galaxies. And yet, there I was, leaning against the doorframe, trying not to look like I had been caught somewhere I didn't belong. She was standing by the window, a mug of coffee in her hands, the steam curling lazily around her fingers. The way she held it, almost protective, almost ritualistic, made me want to reach out, touch it, just to feel something close to her. I didn't. Instead, I watched her, silently, the quiet hum of the city below us seeping through the thin glass. "I told you, it's just one night, right?" she said, turning toward me. Her voice wasn't accusatory, not exactly. It was soft, like she was testing herself as much as testing me. I swallowed and tried to meet her eyes without flinching. They were sharp, knowing, like she had already read the parts of me I tried to hide. I laughed a little too lightly. "Unless you want more," I replied, letting the words hang in the air longer than necessary. Her lips twitched. She didn't smile, not fully. Not yet. Instead, she took a slow step toward me, her eyes scanning my face as if she could trace every thought I hadn't spoken. I felt my chest tighten, an almost painful awareness that this wasn't just about a casual night. It hadn't been from the moment she let me in. I shifted my weight, fingers brushing against the edge of the doorframe. My heart hammered like it wanted to escape, and yet I couldn't move. There was something about the way she existed in this space, confident but fragile, that made me feel both older and smaller at the same time. I could read the lines on her face, subtle traces of years she didn't hide, scars she had embraced, and I felt a strange mixture of awe and guilt for even daring to want her. "Coffee?" she asked, voice softer now. She gestured toward the small table in the corner, cups neatly aligned like she always thought she needed order. I nodded, moving toward it slowly, pretending casual, but my fingers trembled as I picked up my own mug. We drank in silence, the quiet thick enough to swallow us whole. I noticed the faint scent of lavender in the room, a subtle perfume that wasn't overwhelming but lingered just long enough to make my thoughts scatter. I wanted to ask her something, anything, but the words lodged in my throat, heavy with the risk of saying too much, too soon. Finally, she spoke again, almost a whisper. "You don't have to stay if it's complicated." Her hand brushed the rim of the cup, and I caught the way her eyes flicked to mine, searching for a lie, for truth, for something. "Complicated is fine," I said, trying for casual, failing entirely. My voice cracked a little at the end. She caught it. I could tell. She always did. She leaned back, exhaling, and the faintest smile tugged at the corners of her mouth. That smile, half amused, half uncertain, made my stomach flip. For a moment, I thought I might speak, might confess everything spinning inside me, but the words dissolved into the quiet again. Then the doorbell rang. Just once. A sound sharp enough to make both of us jump, slicing through the tension like a knife. She froze, mug halfway to her lips, eyes wide. I didn't move, didn't breathe, but I felt the electricity of that single, small interruption, and I knew, before either of us said anything, that nothing would ever be simple between us again. The doorbell had stopped echoing, but the sound lingered in my chest. She hadn't moved toward the door, hadn't even acknowledged it fully, and I realized suddenly how easy it would be to disappear into her world, or get trapped there entirely. She set her mug down, fingers lingering on the handle, and for a moment, I caught the tiniest tremor in her hand. She was always so careful, always so composed, and yet, sometimes, these small cracks appeared, just long enough for me to see her human beneath the confidence. I wanted to trace them with my own fingers, to know her fully, but I didn't. "Not yet. I shouldn't have let you in," she said quietly. Not an apology, exactly. More like a warning I wasn't supposed to hear. I shrugged, not trusting my voice. I didn't exactly plan it either. There was a pause, a silence that stretched just long enough to make me notice the little details. The crease in her forehead, the way her jaw tightened when she caught herself, the subtle scent of vanilla under the lavender. Comforting and dangerous all at once. You've been through a lot, haven't you?" I asked, almost too casually, watching her shoulders tense. She looked away, toward the window, and I could almost see the history pressing down on her. Divorce. Years of being wanted and dismissed in the same breath. The loneliness that never quite left her, no matter how many people came and went. More than I care to admit, she said finally, a hint of steel in her voice. And you? You're younger than me. Careful, or you'll get burned. I laughed, a little bitterly, trying to mask the truth. I had gotten burned plenty already. Flings, heartbreaks, people who left me just as I started wanting more. But none of them were her. And somehow, the danger of her, felt worth it. More than worth it. I think some burns are worth it, I said softly, almost daring her to scoff. She didn't. Instead, she let her eyes linger on mine longer than necessary, as if weighing the consequences of letting me in further. We moved toward the couch without really deciding to, our steps careful, our bodies aware of the space between us. She paused, reaching to adjust a cushion, and my hand brushed hers. Neither of us moved away. The contact was brief, electric, tiny sparks in the quiet room. I wanted to hold her hand, but instead, I just let my fingers tremble where they'd grazed hers. I remember the first time I made coffee in this place, she murmured, almost to herself. It burned my tongue. Thought I'd ruined it forever. She laughed softly, a sound that made my chest ache in a way I couldn't name. But somehow, I kept making it. Every morning. Her gaze met mine again, warm but tentative, carrying a weight of trust one wasn't sure I deserved. I realized, suddenly, that we were standing on the edge of something we both knew was reckless. Age, expectations, warnings, it didn't matter. The risk was the point. And then, without saying a word, she reached just a little closer. Her fingers brushed my arm, lingering. My heart jumped. Something unspoken passed between us in that small contact, a confession neither of us had dared to voice. I knew, in that suspended moment, that whatever happened next, nothing would feel ordinary again. I didn't notice the way the clock had spun forward until the sunlight had turned gold, slanting through the blinds. We were still on the couch, close enough that our knees brushed, neither of us moving, neither of us speaking. Then, a knock at the door. Sharp, insistent. Her hand froze on my arm. I could feel the sudden rigidity of her body, the tension rolling off her in waves. She whispered, almost to herself, "It's probably nothing." But I knew better. There was always something. She slid off the couch, moving toward the door, and I followed silently. Her steps were deliberate, careful, too careful. I could see the conflict in her back, the way her shoulders curved inward, as if the act of opening the door would undo her control. The door cracked open, and I caught sight of a man, mid-40s, neat suit, briefcase in hand. Someone who belonged in her life, someone who had the right to claim her attention. Her face tightened, polite but distant. I felt a sharp twist of something in my chest, jealousy, guilt, desire, all tangled into one sharp ache. "David," she said, her voice steady but strained. "What a surprise. I just wanted to drop off some papers," he said, glancing briefly at me. My presence seemed to flicker across his expression like a shadow he didn't understand. He didn't linger. Just papers, just business. Yet, the proximity, the timing, it felt like a warning. The moment he left, she exhaled slowly. Her hand lingered on the doorknob. I stepped closer, almost too close. "You okay?" I asked. My voice was quieter than I intended. She didn't answer immediately. She just turned, eyes searching mine. Yeah, I'm fine," she said, but her smile was tight, strained. I saw the tension in her jaw, the flush in her neck, the way her hands trembled slightly. Fine didn't exist in this room. Not with me here, not with us here, with everything unspoken between us. I reached out instinctively, wanting to bridge the gap. Our fingers almost met above the couch, hovering, testing the line we weren't supposed to cross. I could smell her, lavender and something sharper, closer to danger, and I knew she felt it too. Her breath hitched just enough for me to notice. I started, words failing me. Maybe this is a bad idea. Her gaze dropped, fleeting shame mixing with longing. Yeah, maybe. And yet, the pull was magnetic. We couldn't turn away, even as we both knew we should. I wanted to kiss her, wanted to erase the space between us, but I didn't. Not yet. The risk, the complication, was too alive. The silence stretched, and then she laughed softly, nervously. "You always make things more complicated than they have to be." I smiled, tension uncoiling just a little. "You started it," I whispered. Her lips curved faintly, uncertain. We were inches apart. Too close. Too dangerous. I could feel the heat of her, the weight of her, and I knew we were teetering on something irreversible. Then, from somewhere in the quiet apartment, I heard the faint ping of a text. Her phone. She glanced at it, and her eyes widened. Shock, hesitation, something I couldn't name. The moment broke. The distance returned, but only slightly. Whatever the message said, I knew it had changed the game, and I didn't know if it would pull us apart or push us even closer. The apartment felt smaller now, tighter. Every sound, the hum of the refrigerator, the faint buzz of her phone, was amplified. I couldn't stop noticing her, every movement, every subtle glance, every breath she drew like it belonged only to me. I can't. I shouldn't be doing this, she muttered, pacing slowly. Her hands twisted in front of her, fingers brushing the fabric of her sweater in a nervous rhythm. I could see the strain in her shoulders, the way her jaw clenched, and I knew she was on the verge of losing control over the careful composure she always carried. Doing what? I asked, though I already knew the answer. My voice came out lower, a little rougher than I intended. My heart thudded like it was trying to escape my chest. She stopped abruptly, eyes locking with mine, sharp and piercing, almost accusing. You know what? I did. And I wanted it. Wanted her. Wanted the danger. Wanted the way she made the world shrink until it was just us. I took a step closer, feeling the pull, the magnetism I couldn't resist. I know, I whispered. Her lips parted slightly, as if she might say something, and then she shook her head violently. No, you don't. You don't understand. I did understand. I understood too much. I understood the years of caution, the scars, the quiet pain she carried like armor. I understood the weight of her life, and I understood how reckless it would be to fall further. But that only made me want her more. She backed toward the window, and I followed, slow, careful, my hands itching to reach for her, to hold her. Her reflection in the glass caught my eye, soft, vulnerable, and utterly human. And for a moment, I almost forgot everything else. Almost. Then the message on her phone lit up again. She glanced at it, eyes widening, lips tightening. A man's name I didn't know, words I couldn't read fast enough. Her hand shook slightly as she set the phone down. Something in her posture shifted, guilt, fear, uncertainty, and I realized just how much this risked tearing us apart. I can't, she whispered, but her voice trembled. Not away, not out of desire, but with the weight of wanting something forbidden. I closed the distance between us, heart hammering. Then don't think, I said softly. Just let it happen. With me. Her gaze dropped, and I saw her bite her lip, a tiny, human gesture, fragile and intimate. I wanted to touch it, wanted to erase the tension between us with the simplest contact. But then she stepped back again, the movement hesitant, almost ritualistic, as if she were balancing on the edge of a cliff. I knew that if I moved forward now, there would be no turning back, no retreat. Are we? I started, voice catching. Are we really doing this? Her eyes flicked up, full of longing and fear, guilt and desire, and for a heartbeat, time stopped. Every decision we hadn't made, every moment we'd almost shared, hung between us. I reached toward her, and she didn't pull away. And then the phone buzzed again. Another message. Another interruption. Another choice waiting for her to make. I held my breath. I thought I knew her. Thought I could read every line on her face, every hesitation, every glance. But the moment her phone buzzed again, I realized how little I really did. She picked it up, thumb trembling slightly, and her face went pale. A name I didn't recognize flashed on the screen, but the words beneath it made my chest tighten. I can't believe you're alone with him. Are you crazy? Her hand shook so violently that the phone slipped, clattering to the floor. I bent to grab it, and she snatched it back instantly, eyes wide, heart racing. It's nothing, she said, voice brittle, almost defensive. Nothing, I echoed, trying to keep my own pulse steady. Someone's warning you. About me. About us. What is nothing about that? She pressed the phone against her chest like it was a shield. It's complicated. Look, I didn't tell you everything. I wanted to. I wanted to be honest. But her voice broke off, and suddenly the cool, controlled woman I'd been drawn to felt fragile, exposed. I stepped closer, reaching out, but she recoiled slightly. You're hiding something, I said softly, almost accusingly. I wasn't hiding from you, she whispered, avoiding my eyes. I was protecting you. The words hit me, but before I could ask how, the doorbell rang again. This time, the sound wasn't a surprise. It was deliberate, insistent, like fate itself knocking. She froze. I froze. You have to answer it, I said, even though I wanted to stop her, to pull her into my arms and make this, us, real. But I knew better. I also knew she had no choice. She opened the door, and my stomach sank. There he was. David. Or maybe not him. Someone else entirely. Her ex, her colleague, a friend I didn't know? I couldn't tell. The look in his eyes was sharp, dangerous, and for the first time, I saw her vulnerability without any filter at all. What's going on? I demanded quietly, though it sounded rough, needy, desperate. She stepped between us. Nothing. Please, just go, she said, but her voice wavered, betraying a secret she hadn't shared. Her hand brushed mine as she tried to block him, and that touch, brief, electric, made my chest ache in ways I hadn't known possible. I wanted to scream, to pull her closer, to demand the truth. But I didn't. I stood there, frozen, watching the tension curl around us like smoke. She looked at me, pleading, torn, and I realized that everything I thought I understood about this moment, about her, about us, was gone. The text, the knock, the interruption, everything had shifted. What had been safe, even in its danger, was no longer safe at all. And yet, even in the chaos, even in the betrayal I hadn't fully understood, I wanted her more than ever. Her lips trembled as she whispered, almost to herself, I didn't mean for you to find out like this. And in that fragile, fractured confession, I knew nothing would ever be the same again. The apartment was quiet again, but the air was heavy, thick with tension neither of us could shake. Every sound, her breathing, the faint hum of traffic outside, felt magnified. I didn't know if it was relief or dread, but my heart wouldn't stop hammering. She was standing by the couch, hands clenched loosely in front of her, shoulders tight. I could see the fear in her eyes, but also something else, something raw and dangerous. Longing. I can't. I don't know if I should, she whispered. The words were trembling, fragile, like they might shatter if she spoke them too loudly. You don't have to think, I said, stepping closer, trying to bridge the distance without touching her yet. Not right now. Just be here with me. Her gaze flicked to mine, and I saw it. The battle in her, between caution and desire, fear and trust. I could almost feel the weight of her history pressing down, the years of guarded choices, the scars she carried silently. And yet, in this moment, she was choosing me. You don't know what this could cost you, she murmured. You could get hurt. I'm already hurt, I said quietly. By not being here, by not being honest about what I want. Her lips parted slightly, her chest rising and falling fast. She looked like she might collapse under the weight of her own desire, and I realized I wanted her even more for that vulnerability. I wanted her courage, even if it scared both of us. She stepped closer, our knees almost brushing, her fingers trembling at her sides. I reached out slowly, letting my hand hover near hers, not pushing, not demanding. She exhaled sharply, and then, gently, our fingers intertwined. A small, human contact that carried every confession we hadn't yet voiced. I don't know if this is right, she whispered, voice breaking. Right or wrong doesn't matter, I said, my thumb brushing over hers, memorizing the shape, the warmth. What matters is that we're here, together. Her gaze dropped for a heartbeat, and I could see her shame, her hesitation, the ghosts of all the choices she'd made before. Then she lifted her eyes again, meeting mine fully, and in that look, I saw surrender, but also trust, hope, something fragile and impossible. We didn't rush. No sudden kisses, no declarations. Just the small, trembling, perfect closeness of two people who had chosen each other, despite the risk, despite the past, despite everything. I don't know what happens next, she admitted softly. Neither do I said honestly. But I know I don't want to go anywhere without you. She smiled faintly, almost a whisper, and for the first time since I'd walked through her door, the tension loosened. We were still on the edge, still human, still flawed, but together, and that was enough for now. And in that quiet, precarious moment, with fingers entwined and hearts exposed, I realized that whatever came next, the chaos, the risks, the unknown, We had already chosen each other. The morning light filtered softly through the blinds, warm and forgiving, as if the city itself had paused to let us catch our breath. She was sitting at the small kitchen table, coffee steaming between her hands, and I stood in the doorway, watching her like I had so many times before, but this time, differently. Different because nothing was hidden, nothing unspoken, at least not in the way that mattered. We had crossed the line of restraint, navigated the chaos, and somehow emerged with a fragile, trembling understanding of each other. She looked up, her eyes meeting mine. That faint, nervous smile tugged at my chest. "You stayed," she said softly, almost a question. "I stayed," I replied, stepping closer, letting my hand brush hers across the table. Her fingers didn't pull away. They never did. The apartment was quiet, but it didn't feel tense anymore. It felt lived in, safe, in a way that was earned, not given. I realized how much I had wanted this. The risk, the fear, the impossibility of it all, and how much she had wanted it too, even when she tried to deny herself. "I don't know what comes next," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I know I don't want to go back." "Then we don't," I said simply. "We just take it one day at a time. Messy, slow, human, like this." She laughed quietly, a sound that carried relief, embarrassment, and joy all at once. "Messy, slow, human," she repeated. "Sounds perfect." I smiled, feeling the tension ease just a fraction. We didn't need perfect. We needed real. And for the first time, in a long time, real felt enough. We moved toward the window, leaning together slightly, watching the city wake below us. Her hand found mine again, fingers entwining naturally, and I realized that this ordinary, fragile closeness was exactly what we had been searching for. Not fireworks, not grand gestures, just the quiet certainty of being chosen. The past still lingered, of course. Ghosts, regrets, the shadow of those who didn't understand. But we had something stronger now. Honesty, trust, desire intertwined with restraint. A slow-burning promise that we could navigate the risks, together. And in that moment, I felt a rare kind of peace. The messy, impossible, taboo thing we had almost ruined, or perhaps had saved by choosing it carefully, was ours. She glanced at me, eyes soft, a question in their depths. I smiled, squeezing her hand. "Are you ready for breakfast?" I teased. She laughed again, and it was light, unguarded, and for a moment, everything else faded. Whatever came next, we would face it side by side. Flawed, human, alive. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?